Good afternoon, all, and this is a video that is another one in the series that follows up on my last video, which was 40 plus ways autistic language is a different language than neurotypical language courts. Now, the thing about autistic language, autistic thinking, and autistic bottom-up language processing and information processing is that it's an immutable trait of being autistic. As Ryan Kelly says, we have a different brain. Our brain is an autistic brain, not a neurotypical brain. And in law, an immutable trait is a characteristic that is beyond an individual's ability to change or is fundamental to their identity. Traits that meet these criteria are given additional legal protection under constitutional anti-discrimination law. For example, some say it would be wrong for the government to punish someone for refusing to change a trait that is central to their identity, even if it would be physically easy to do so. Now, when a person is autistic and there's 40 plus autistic language differences that make the autistic language different than the neurotypical language, including the bottom-up, detailed way in which autistic people communicate, use language, and sequentially process language, this is beyond our physical ability to change it. This is a physical impossibility. And so, the courts like to say that autistic people must conform with procedural rules and court orders. Period. Even when the person is autistic. Now, this is an opinion that has just been widely published by uscourts.gov, the United States courts, okay? It's out of the Middle District of Florida, Tampa Division. I was not given an autism language interpreter. The judge couldn't understand what I said. He misinterpreted and misunderstood, and he got it all wrong. Okay? Because within the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal area, can anyone say, federal courts, you got an autism problem. You are failing autistic litigants. And that's a fact. So, now anyone can go watch my video on 40 plus different ways the autistic language is different than the neurotypical language. It's an immutable trait beyond our control. We cannot be indistinguishable from a neurotypical just because a federal court in Florida or the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal judges order us to do so, because they can sign the orders. They get to sign the orders so they can abuse their positions and abuse autistic litigants and order us to be indistinguishable from a neurotypical, or you will be punished. And it happens. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeal found in 2014. I'm autistic. The magistrate below said I suffers from autism. He said that my language was a myriad of word puzzles and incomprehensible, that he couldn't understand it. And so therefore, because he did not give me a language interpreter, the U.S. Honorable Magistrate Gary R. Jones, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, said because I could not make my autistic, immutable autistic language traits indistinguishable from a neurotypical, I willfully disobeyed the court order, and that it was contumacious conduct. When I argued that we were incapable of complying with those language rules, they still said it was willful disobedience and contumacious. And what judges were those? Well, Chief Judge William Pryor Jr., Judge Fay, and Judge Wilson said that about my being autistic. Now, I'm autistic. When I try to just get the words out, that I'm a level 2 autistic person with savant syndrome, meaning that there's some narrow savant abilities, but they're juxtaposed with a trough of disabilities. And I have a spiky profile. So I cannot change the immutable traits of my autistic language. I can't be indistinguishable from a neurotypical. I don't speak the neurotypical language. I just try to get the words out and give my literal fact language. But nobody understands that. And so I'm always told I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm broken, they need to make me fixed, deter me, punish me, and then they publish these opinions in the United States courts, uscourts.gov, in legal periodicals and things, and they're defamatory. They are maliciously defamatory. Why are they defamatory? Because they're a half-truth. Because when they're being published to third parties about me, nowhere in there are they saying, because I'm autistic, I have language differences that are an immutable trait of autism that I cannot change. And that is what they're punishing me for. So, the reason for these court orders is also because in Florida, in the 11th Circuit, they had the stereotype that autistic people refuse to comply with court orders. And they willfully disobey court orders. And they will not comply. Well, let's see how true that belief is. There was another court order entered against me by the Honorable Nancy Roberts Lonsdale. She was an English and Italian literature major from Stanford University in 1975 with a Juris Doctor degree from Bolt Hall, University of California, Berkeley School of Law. And then she served as a judge pro tempore at the State Bar Court of the State Bar of California from 1990 to 1994. And then she was appointed as a hearing judge of the State Bar Court of the State Bar of California in 1995. And she was assigned to my California bar admission case. Nancy Roberts Lonsdale. Now, if anybody would ever obey a court order, they would do it. An autistic person would do it to get the bar admission and attorney license that person worked for 8 years of their life. that was going to bring a better life for their child, who was 4 years old when the person entered university and was 12 years old when the person graduated law school, and looking forward to a better life with her mother. I was a single mother when I went to law school, an autistic mother in law school, and I graduated with a Juris Doctorate degree. But then I ran into, well, as Thurgood Marshall called it when he represented Virgil Hawkins, and African Americans were not allowed to be lawyers, Thurgood Marshall called it a massive wall of resistance. That's what he called it. And indeed, it's the same with autistic people seeking court access and bar membership. It's no different than in the day of Thurgood Marshall, and to borrow his words, it's a massive wall of resistance, and it's still there. Now, Autistic Hoya talks about the stereotype that being autistic is the age-old problem of criminalization, of being a criminal, of criminal activity. Because you're autistic, you're a criminal. That is a stereotype. It's a dangerous stereotype. And those who write such things fail to understand the devastating and frightening impact their words have on our life. These stereotypes are readily transformed into objects of presumed fact. It has a profound impact on cultural perceptions and prejudices, attitudinal barriers to equal access and opportunity. It readily seeps into attitudes and actions directed toward us autistics, leading to increased stigma, prejudice, bigotry, discrimination on the basis of disability. A peer-reviewed paper published as early as 1991 found no evidence for any correlation between violence and being autistic. And that is Autistic Hoya here. Nancy Roberts Lonsdale entered a decision on my California bar admission, which has never become final like everyone else is entitled to, according to the Supreme Court of the United States, remains in limbo for over 30 years, in which she equates my being autistic as the age-old continuing societal debate on free will versus predestination. It continues constantly in the criminal law arena, and so the legacy of Nancy Roberts Lonsdale is she equated my being autistic to presumed criminality, and that's the basis on which she refused to give me my California bar admission, and it got put in limbo for 30 years without a final decision. That's a stereotype. But she did far worse than that. And this is something that you see with all of these judges in courts. Once they know you're autistic, it isn't enough for them to inflict vast harm on you by signing their orders. The things they say about you, the punishments they inflict on you, the dismissals of cases where you need medical care and treatment, where you want to be paid for the work you did, where they're taking your real property just like they did to African Americans. It's all the same civil rights story. It has never gone away, but now it's easier for these courts to pick on autistic people than African Americans, and so they continue their steady drumbeat of stereotypes and discrimination. Now, Nancy Roberts Lonsdale wasn't satisfied with inflicting a takings of everything I worked for as a single mother for 8 years away from me and away from a 12-year-old daughter who had all these hopes and dreams life would be better because I would become a licensed lawyer. Oh no, she did something far worse to me. Risperidol is a pharmaceutical medication created by Janssen Pharmaceuticals, whose parent company is J&J. And I believe it came out in around 1994. And so I was constantly being told, not just by judges in California and of the State Bar Court and of the State Bar California Deputy Trials Counsel's Office, that I was broken. What was wrong with me? I had to be fixed. And I couldn't have a bar admission. I was outed as autistic. I couldn't have a bar admission because I was autistic. And the focus was on my autistic language. That's these 40-plus immutable traits that make the autistic language a different language than the neurotypical language. So, my doctor, Carlos Garcia, prescribed Risperidol to me. That was in 1996. He prescribed it for an off-label, kind of wild reason, and that was he told me it could make me speak and write indistinguishable from a neurotypical. Speak and write the same as everybody else, so that the California bar examiners wouldn't have any problem with my speaking and writing an autistic language we now know it is anymore, and that I would get my bar admission. Oh, where did Janssen ever say Risperidol could be used for such a just wacky reason? It's like chemical castration or something. They're going to chemically force me to be indistinguishable from a neurotypical because I'm autistic. My next doctor, Dr. Nancy Mavis, prescribed the Risperidol for the same reason. Nancy Mavis. Okay? All we talked about in the sessions was that they didn't like the way I used language and communicated. That I couldn't do it the way they did it and wanted. I was autistic. And so she followed Carlos Garcia's reason for prescribing me the Risperidol to make my autistic language indistinguishable from the neurotypical language so that I could get a bar admission in California. Now, Honorable Nancy Roberts Lonsdale heard a lot of testimony about I was on this Risperidol. They prescribed this to me. That's why they prescribed it to me. And then what did she do? She played doctor. She's a state bar court judge. She played doctor. I mean, that's where you sort of have to say, where did you go to law school? I mean, did Bolt Hall Law School at UC Berkeley teach Nancy Roberts Lonsdale she can play doctor, or that she can order somebody to take medication to be indistinguishable from a neurotypical. I mean, we know Ovar Lovis was at UCLA. It's part of the UC system, that same one that Bolt Hall is. So you gotta wonder what's wrong with these law schools, these judges that they're putting out. Nancy Roberts Lonsdale wrote, her medications appear to be helping greatly. That's the Risperidol. And that rehabilitation needs to be measured in years, not months. And that the court is sure that if my rehabilitation continues uninterrupted 4 years, I will have a record that will justify my admission to the State Bar of California. This is signed by Nancy Roberts Lonsdale, Judge of the State Bar Court. And so the upshot of this is, Honorable Nancy Roberts Lonsdale, Judge of the State Bar Court, played doctor and ordered me to stay on the Risperidol 4 years if I wanted my California bar admission. Why? Because it chemically made my autistic language indistinguishable from a neurotypical. So neurotypicals can be comfortable around me being autistic with different language, because neurotypicals are intolerant of autistic differences. Now, there's a couple problems with this. First of all, the Risperidol caused my breasts to go from about a cup A size and my weight of about 105 pounds, my athletic physique and ability that brought me a U.S. National Champion Horse of the Year title, and that physique and athletic ability, weight, and breast size I needed to ride and jump horses to earn income as a professional horse trainer. The Risperidol destroyed it. It destroyed my professional horse trainer physique, my athletic physique I needed. Because within weeks of going on the Risperidol, my weight went from about 110 pounds to about 280 pounds. My breasts went from about a size A to about a size DD. I was not pregnant. They started lactating milk like I had just had a baby. Lactating milk. I'm like, what the heck is happening? What's this? Oh no, there were no warnings from Carlos Garcia, MD. No warnings from Nancy A. Mavis, MD. And no warnings from Honorable Nancy Roberts Lonsdale that Risperidol could have these adverse effects on me. But I was ordered to stay on the Risperidol 4 years by Honorable Nancy Roberts Lonsdale's court order if I wanted my California bar admission. The 11th Circuit and the District Court in Florida likes to say that I disobey court orders, that I'm willful disobedience and contumacious. And that's just not true, because no autistic woman would obey a court order the way I did. I obeyed Nancy Roberts Lonsdale's court order in every possible way. And that's remembering that autistic people are naive, socially gullible, and we fawn. We fawn because we are trained from the time we are an infant and a toddler that we cannot say no to anything a neurotypical tells us or asks us to do. In around 1981 or 82, right there, I had a precancerous lesion removed from my left breast by this doctor here. Now, I never got a pathology report from that doctor to be able to read, but he told me it was not cancerous at that time. And he would have the medical records from 1981 or 82 because he's the one that took the lesion out of my left breast. This study here found that risperidone increases breast cancer risk by activating JAK-STAT5 in precancerous lesions. That the hyperprolactinemia that the risperidone causes, that's the enlarging your breasts, your extreme weight gain, the lactating of the milk, the hyperprolactinemia the risperidone drug causes, instigates precancerous cells to progress to cancer by the JAK/STAT5 by suppressing the apoptosis anti-cancer barrier. And that there's actually something that they could do to treat this to prevent the cancer from actually happening. And this means that risperidone can cause breast cancer risk from hyperprolactinemia inducing antipsychotics. That's what risperidone is. Specifically, they studied risperidone, which is risperidone. At no time and nowhere did Carlos Garcia, MD, Nancy A. Mavis, MD, Janssen Pharmaceuticals or their parent company J&J, or Honorable Nancy Roberts Lonsdale, who ordered me to stay on risperidone for years to make me speak and write indistinguishable from a neurotypical. At no time whatsoever did any of them warn me that if I stayed on risperidone for years, even taking it could cause me to get breast cancer. No warnings, no warnings. But I'm supposed to obey court orders. I have to obey court orders. If I don't obey court orders, I'm willful and contumacious. I'm autistic. I had a prior breast lesion removed. Nobody asked me if I had a prior breast lesion removed. Nobody sought my prior medical records. Nobody gave me any warning. I got breast cancer after I took risperidone and obeyed Nancy Roberts Lonsdale's court order to stay on the risperidone for years. Trial evidence in some trials indicated that J&J hid risperidone study results from the FDA. I had pronoun reversal at the subcommittee on moral character hearing. I wasn't being treated for schizophrenia, with which I've never been diagnosed. I was being treated because I was autistic. To make my autistic speaking and writing immutable autistic language differences indistinguishable from a neurotypical. On February 17th, 2023, as a result of, now, the breast cancer is the indivisible injury, but there can be more than one joint cause of the indivisible injury. And Nancy Roberts Lonsdale, Nancy Mavis, Carlos Garcia, Janssen Pharmaceuticals are all a cause, they're all one cause of my breast cancer, of the indivisible injury of my breast cancer, because they failed to warn. They failed to warn me if I took that risperidone drug, having had a prior lesion removed from my left breast, that I could get breast cancer. Now, that's a pretty steep price and punishment to pay for obeying a court order and going out of my way to obey a court order. So when the 11th Circuit and the District Court in Tampa, with their fa-la-la, that I don't obey court orders, and I'm willful and contumacious by not obeying court orders due to immutable autistic language different traits, that is a slap in the face, a stab in the back, and an insult of the highest order to me as an autistic person who so went out of her way to obey court orders. She obeyed Nancy Roberts Lonsdale's state bar court order that gave me breast cancer. Pain and suffering. How bad was it? A double mastectomy. Infiltrative ductal carcinoma. 27 lymph nodes removed from my left side. 27. And now my left arm is about twice as big as my right arm with lymphedema because of the removal of that many lymph nodes. And that was even with the Mayo Clinic doing a lymphedema bypass operation. So, I just want to say how outrageous it should be to every member of the autistic community, to autism parents everywhere, that we have courts that are failing autism. They are so out of touch with what it means to be autistic. They have not updated the way they handle things in the courts for autistic people since maybe the mid-1800s. They don't want to know about autism. They will tell you it's irrelevant and it's immaterial. Now, 11th Circuit and District Court in Florida, you can't tell me, Mary, that I willfully disobey court orders after I went out of my way to follow Nancy Roberts Lonsdale's State Bar Court Hearing Department court order that ordered me to stay on risperidone for years, and it gave me breast cancer. She played doctor and never disclosed to me that if I obeyed her court order, I would get breast cancer. Y'all, all your courts fail autism. You have an autism problem. And all these courts in Florida and California and in the 11th Circuit, they need to be overhauled from the bottom up. And another thing, this existing situation of an almost 100% neurotypical Florida bar membership and an almost 100% neurotypical state and federal judge membership composition, this needs to change. Again, as Thurgood Marshall said, it's a massive wall of resistance. You court people hate autistic people. You hate autistic people for no good justifiable reason at all. And it's not okay to inflict breast cancer on a woman because she's autistic and she went out of her way to do what's right and obey your court orders. Now, if anybody wants to see more of my videos, I tell it like it is, as an actually autistic person. And I, like Shannon Doherty, I could die of my breast cancer. So I'm going to tell it how it is. I'm going to say how I've been treated in my life and how this is wrong. And I hope this kind of thing never happens to anybody else. And especially to autistic children now being born who are going to grow up. They're going to grow up into this kind of neurotypical dominated world. So you got to go into that world with your eyes open and see how autistic people are being mistreated and abused by the neurotypical majority. And these people in our courts who are judges, they are the role models. As the Supreme Court of the United States says in Marbury v. Madison, the court says what the law is. Well, that's all fine and dandy. If you're going to be the role model, then be a role model. Be a role model for the good and the betterment of humanity. Not to single out autistic people in the autistic population to label them as broken and in need of being fixed, undeserving and unworthy, and it's okay to inflict breast cancer on someone by making them obey a court order. I'll be putting out future videos. If you like my videos, please subscribe, ring the bell, hit the notification button, and you'll be notified of my future videos. Thank you.